Are we quitting FIFA Esports? As EAFC have taken it in their own direction, they've created a new model, a new ecosystem of events. We've not been invited, basically. We can't justify keeping you. But I think we have been the best, and I'm not just talking about results there. And what content can we make from an ecosystem that's essentially closed the door on us? We were there at the very beginning.
The very beginning.
But we have had to make a change to our strategy. They're back, baby. All right, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the #United channel. I'm joined by my brother Sebastian.
Hello. Oh, formal today.
I'm using your proper full name because
Must
it's
be
an important
pod.
It is an important video. You can see from the title, it's not clickbait. It's a serious question, serious times here at #. Are we quitting FIFA Esports? Well, first of all, Seb, why would someone be asking that question? Because there's been an obvious, even to the untrained eye, kind of decreasing amount of people in the esports team at # of our involvement in FIFA Esports. In this video, we're going to talk about why that's happened. We're going to talk about the future and what it holds. We're going to talk about what's happening in FIFA Esports in general, and there's a lot to unpack there. But most importantly, we have a very exciting announcement at the end of the video, so stay tuned for it. This isn't just a doom and gloom sad video. This is a little bit of one of those transparent videos. We're going to talk about how the club works on the esports side, but we're also going to have a nice announcement.
Yeah, you guys seem to love those, and we like sharing it, to be honest. I think it's something we're going to look to do a lot more of, Spen, as well.
Yeah, on a side note, I was going to say to you guys, if you are interested in more of this, I know we've said this before, whenever we do these sit-down videos, let us know, because we're thinking about starting a podcast, which will be all about how we run the club. And it seems to be from the comments and these sorts of videos, you would like that. So let us know in the comments if you do. Right, this is time to crack on. FIFA Esports. So, let's look at the history of it. Let's look at the history of FIFA Esports and our involvement in it. We were there at the very beginning. And what I class at the beginning is when teams started to rise up, people started to get contracts as players. You know, we signed Harry Hesketh off the back of the Spencer FC Game Academy, and people loved the series, but the comments were like, why are you signing a pro player? There's no events to play, and there's only the FIFA Interactive World Cup, as it was known then. And there was no use for a pro player. Well, I had a bit of intel. I had a hunch that there was going to be a lot of stuff coming. And guess what? Soon after we signed Harry, they announced FUT Champions. They announced all that great stuff. We won the first ever event, not with Harry, with TAS. Remember TAS? #TAS in Paris. And we've won a lot of events since then. You know, there's been some amazing teams, and there's still some amazing teams in FIFA Esports. I'm obviously incredibly biased, but I think we have been the best. And I'm not just talking about results there. I'm talking about the community we created, the fans that we had follow us at these events, and in the many, many videos we made across multiple channels. I'm not going to say careers we made, because these guys are very talented guys that would have had their own careers without us. But the people that have come through # as esports players have all gone on to great things.
Well, from the very, very beginning, the runner-up in the Game Academy was Kes Brown.
Yes,
went to City.
Exactly.
You know, so we obviously were helpful in talking to a lot. I sat physically in the boardrooms of many Premier League clubs discussing why we thought Premier League teams should get esports teams.
Yeah. We were literally the people in the room with Premier League football clubs explaining to them what FIFA Esports was. Before EA had even talked to them, we were doing that. Obviously, EA had relationships with these clubs in terms of content and sponsoring football, but in terms of getting football clubs, and we were the ones saying to Man City, there's a reason they signed Kes Brown. It was like, well, we just signed a guy called Harry. The second best player was a guy called Kes. Do you want him? And they signed him. You know, we hosted the first ever, and actually won it, the first ever pro tournament between professional football clubs. And we sneaked # in there. We weren't a professional football club at the time. We still aren't. And we won it for Harry Hesketh. We had, Schalke, we had Wolfsburg, we had Porto.
Yes, Lisbon.
We had some Man City, obviously.
Man City, West Ham.
We had some huge teams. It was at London Stadium, that tournament, and we won it. And
Harry
won it. But going back to what I talked about, the players we've had come through our doors, you know, people like Boras, legend, has gone on to be an amazing creator in the FIFA space. You know, Ryan has had an amazing career with Man City. You know,
Taz already mentioned.
I'm obviously Taz had a huge deal, obviously with FaZe. Harry went and worked with Fnatic. We don't need to talk about Harry, and he's a huge name in the scene.
#Mike.
#Mike LaBelle, you know, everyone's been through. You won a tournament with him on the
I
same
won a
team
tournament.
in New
I've
York.
had 2 involvements in the esports events. One was I was a coach for TAS, W.
True.
The other one,
Paris,
I was Harry's partner in New York, W.
Was that the only time you coached at an event as well? So you got 100%
record.
I mean,
I have the highest win percentage of any professional FIFA
like
esports
Sam
coach
Allardyce.
in the world.
You're like the Sam
It's a
Allardyce
fact. Look,
of
there's
FIFA
just
esports.
not enough room for it in my Twitter bio.
One
sadly.
game, one win. Listen, if things get hard and you run out of things to do, esports teams, he's got a great record. But I'm better at FIFA than him. Anyway,
fact.
So listen, you can tell by the way we're talking about it and reminiscing about it, how much of an important thing it's been in our lives over the last like 7-8 years, and how proud we are of our achievements. But we have had to make a change to our strategy.
Yes.
You know, so we, at one point, I think first year after we signed Harry, we then signed Mike, we signed Boras, we signed Tass. I think at one point, obviously down the line, we had Aggie Rosenmeyer, Ryan, all these different people came through the doors. Tom Shorey. We ended up with 5 players at one point. I think was the most we ever had. You know, obviously it was people I'm forgetting. I can't name everyone.
JRA.
Honey Badger, JRA, you know, obviously Stokes more recently. We'll talk about him in a minute. Dreamer, you know, Ethan Higgins.
All the guys that played in the Fnatic.
And so many of those guys. Ethan Higgins.
Elite Series.
Elite Series. Ethan Higgins has gone on to have a great career. Like so many of those guys have started at hashtag and gone on to huge things. And that's kind of how we pitched ourselves as like almost like an Ajax. You know, we don't add the money to even some of the big contracts players have had in the last few years. FIFA Esports has been insane. And we've never had the money to do that. Just like we've never had the money in the football team to be the highest spenders. But we've been
moneyballing, haven't we? We've been moneyballing a little bit.
I'm very proud of that.
The landscape's changed a lot now.
We're the Brighton of non-league and FIFA, some would say.
Call me Deserby.
But we went from having 5 players, 4 players, making great content as a team, doing stuff in the Esports HQ, lots of fun, to then having like 2 players after COVID, to then having 1 player last year with Stokes. And even after a really strong year, Stokes had, he won the EPL. He got to the World Cup final, FIFA E World Cup final in Saudi Arabia. You know, it's a really good year, and he's done unbelievable things on Twitch. We have still had to be in a position where we've said to him, look, you should go and get yourself a deal somewhere else, mate. We can't justify keeping you. And that's no reflection on Stokes whatsoever, by the way. You know, especially last year, he did everything on his own. We didn't even have an esports manager last year, which we've always had every other year. Stokes was on his own. He knew that going in. I did tell him that before he stayed with us. And he was happy to take that on because he's a great worker and he gets things done. So mad respect to Stokes and top guy. But we're just not in a position to keep it going anymore because the scene has changed. Or is it fair to say it's changed, or is it truer to say that it hasn't kicked on in the way that we probably hoped it would?
I think it's a combination of both there. I think we've had to take a hard look, especially with what's gone on in the last 12 months and how much the club is growing in general. Hard look at every single part of the club and which bit is serving longer term trajectory, combining that with the fact that just the space has evolved. Yeah. It has completely changed the landscape of what makes sense. What organisations can be sustainable within FIFA Esports right now, or EAFC Esports, if you want to call it, whatever it's going to be called. It is very, very different now. And I think it's not just us making difficult decisions right now.
No, of course not. And that's true. We shouldn't even be calling it FIFA Esports anymore. You're right. That's very big part of this decision. But ultimately, for an esports in general has always been a growth industry, right? And no one's really been making loads of money out of esports, apart from maybe some of the big content houses or, people like 100 Thieves come to mind, or the orgs that are making big money winning huge events in things like League of Legends and all this stuff, right? FIFA's never really been there, and there's a load of reasons for that. So obviously we're at the crux. The new EAFC game's just come out. FIFA and EA have gone separate ways. So it's called, we should call it FC Pro, I believe they're calling the scene, or we'll call it EAFC Esports for the sake of this video. They've got their sort of bit more freedom now, because part of the deal they always had with FIFA was that obviously FIFA had been doing the FIFA Interactive World Cup for a long, long time. And I've been hosting it for the last 8 years. I think I've done more than anyone else, and I love being involved in that. It's now called the FIFA E World Cup. We have the E Nations as well. We have the E Club World Cup. So when EA, and this is where it gets a bit confusing if you're not part of the scene, when EA started to do esports stuff, FIFA were kind of like, well, hang on, we've been doing this for a while too. So they come to an agreement, which is that their events would be the pinnacle at the end of every year, and all the EA stuff would sort of support it, and you'd like win the EA E-Champions League or a FUT Champions Cup, and it would qualify you for the FIFA event. So they were completely separate events. Now, EA are completely in charge of what they want to do esports-wise, which is why they're changing the setup quite dramatically. We'll talk about that. But also, they can change how much prize money they want to put in. Like, I think that the E-World Cups were always going to be the biggest prize money previously.
Yeah, caps everything else.
Because that was the big event. So now EA can do what they want. So we may see some great prize money come in, and that could be very good for some individuals who win that money. And I'm not disputing that. What you're seeing in this video is very much a hashtag United opinion.
Yes.
It's very much where we stand as an independent organisation
That's the
in
key
the space.
thing, isn't it?
It's not me saying that these are bad decisions or these are problems for FIFA Esports. I think it's a completely different opinion piece you can make as to whether you think this is good for FIFA. I keep using the word FIFA Esports.
Yeah, it's natural.
For EAFC Esports going forward. I'm going to call it football esports, right? So whether these changes are good for the actual space is different. let's talk about it from a hashtag perspective. So we're an independent organisation. Any money we spend comes internally. We have to make it. We have to make it off YouTube. We have to make it on kit sales. We have to make it on
We've had some
sponsors.
great partners on an esports team.
Yeah,
We've had some great partners over the years.
We wouldn't have done any of that cool stuff we just talked about if it wasn't for a lot of the sponsors that you've gone out and got.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the likes of LUCOZADE, Scuff, Astro, Foothead, been huge for us.
Yeah,
absolutely
massive.
huge for us from the very, very beginning, really. And now we've got a new partner coming into the club in Canna, who are, we're going to talk about the future in a minute, actually, because this is not the end for #United Esports, #United Gaming content and things happening. But we won't spoil that for now.
No, so those guys that bought into us and backed us allowed us to hire the players and do those things. We took the initial risk. People got on board with it very early on, and then we started generating some money. We were never really profitable, I will say, from FIFA Esports. No. It's worth stating that because I think it's interesting for people to know.
It's very expensive.
Hashtag as a whole, we've done really well with it. I talk about this a lot, how we've been sustainable and even profit generating for much of our existence. That wasn't what was happening from esports. Esports was at best, washing its own face at best, sometimes making a small loss. But that was fine because it's a growth industry. The idea that most people in esports are trying to do is get their sort of position in the industry. So when it kicks off.
Yep.
And I think it's fair to say FIFA Esports hasn't kicked off the way we all thought it could and would and maybe still will yet. We're 7-8 years into it. For a small team like us, when the costs are getting more every year, the players are getting more expensive, to compete is getting harder. There's more teams. You need to see some sort of return at some point, So that's kind of where we are. But I think the bigger picture thing here, the bigger reason as to why we no longer have a player, that's what I should start with, right? Stokes has moved on. We don't have a player, and we're not necessarily going to sign one, unless there's someone watching out there who's the next up-and-coming player and he wants to play for us for free because it is a financial decision, and that may be the case. Or it may well be the case. Let us know. We can't justify losing money anymore in esports, and the reason for that is, first of all, look at the whole club, right? The football side have been flying, and it's worth saying the esports side have been flying since day one as well. We've always won things, never stopped winning things. But football team, as it's got promoted, men and women, the costs go up, obviously. We also made a whole separate video about what happened with us and Hummel last year, and we lost a lot of money there, it wasn't lights out for the club, but it was very damaging. So in the light of all these things and increasing costs, we can't afford to have lost leaders and things that have shown no signs of ever returning. And this isn't like a case of we haven't been good enough. Like, genuinely, we could have won World Cups. We didn't, but we could have won the biggest prize money in FIFA Esports and still lost money.
I think one of the biggest things to talk about is all of those things being completely true, but then on top of that, and probably as much of a bigger impact, is how the structure is different now for independent organisations.
Well, that's what I was getting to. So ultimately, that's where our head was with esports. But then this big change that's come in, which we'll talk about now, has kind of made the decision for us.
Yeah.
It's kind of gone, right, it's no longer a decision of do we want to lose some money on FIFA esports this year. It's now a case of what can we actually do in football esports? So as EAFC have taken it in their own direction, they've created a new model, a new ecosystem of events. And essentially, it makes it incredibly hard for you as a player at an independent esports organisation to qualify for the major events. Almost all of the spots to get into the World Cup, or the biggest event at the end of the year where the big money can be made, are being given to pro football teams in these pro leagues, like the Premier League, like the La Liga, the Serie A, whatever. Yeah. If you don't play for one of those teams, it's almost not worth trying. That's not obviously completely true. From an independent player perspective, if you're a player out there and you're not signed for one of those teams, of course try. Get involved in the Open Cups and all these things, and someone is going to qualify from them. So yeah, it's worth it. But from an organisation standpoint, when you've got to spend the money up front, you've got to hire the players, you've got to have the facilities, do all these things, the chance of you getting any, not just a return on your money, because it's never really been about that. It's mainly about what can you give the sponsors that are going to fund everything? What can you give them in terms of real estate? What content can we make from an ecosystem that's essentially closed the door on us? Again, this is me from an esports owner perspective. It feels a little bit like the Super League, where we've not been invited, basically. And listen, we're not going to get into the intricacies of why EA have made that decision. They obviously believe and back that the future of their esports is in mirroring traditional football. Where that's frustrating for me, just as a genuine objective bystander, is that a lot of these teams, I don't know if it's the case in every country, but a lot of these Premier League teams just don't care.
They don't care.
They don't even want to play.
Some of them do.
Some of the other countries' teams have gone out and signed some of the best players. I've seen Man City care, by the way. They're a great example. Man City really care. They've gone and signed Matthias Bonanno, who's one of the best players. They've shown ambition. Some of the teams in other countries have gone out and signed top players. But the reality is most of Premier League teams are going to be letting competition winners, or that's not to say they're not going to be good players. What I mean by that is they're having a qualification to say, oh, you won the event, you come and play for us. We're not going to pay you. We're not going to put you on a contract. But if you win, you're going to get your ticket to the World Cup final thanks to us. So it's still good that it's happening, but essentially it's killing the pro scene a lot as well. A lot of pro players are not going to be able to be professional this year. They're not going to make that money. So from our perspective, we had to make a decision, and it seemed like the perfect timing with regards to where the football team's going and how hard it is to make a competitive team make sense at hashtag this year. A couple of things I want to say on that. This isn't us closing the door on it forever.
No.
This isn't us saying we're never going to have a player again. There is still a world when we could be involved in these leagues. You're allowed to do hybrid teams. So if there's any Premier League teams watching out there, or maybe even abroad teams in the top flights, that want to do some sort of deal with hashtag. We've had some conversations about it. We are allowed to do that. It won't be a West Ham, for example, but let's say it was hashtag West Ham. Yep. We could be called the West Ham tags or West Ham hashtag in an event, and we might provide the players for their team, things like that. It's going to be hard in the Premier League because most of the Premier League have voted to do this qualification system instead. But again, even if that opportunity comes up,
we're not closing any doors.
We're not going to be putting the money in though, because we can't justify it.
I think
it's going to have to be a content deal with a Premier League club or whatever, or an overseas club.
There's a couple of examples of that, but it's a constantly changing landscape. I mean, like things are moving very, very fast. So we like to be proud of the fact that we're quite agile and nimble and can move quickly as well.
Well, that's where this next thing comes in.
There you go.
We've pivoted. We're playing the double pivot. I'm Rice, he's Phillips. Shouldn't be in the team. It's a double pivot. So we don't just walk away when we've spent so much time, money and energy in esports and in growing this space, not just for ourselves, but I think for the whole scene. Not for me to say, but if there was a Mount Rushmore of FIFA, not players, because obviously I wouldn't be on there for players. FIFA player might, but I don't know who that was. If there was a Mount Rushmore for people behind the scenes, there's some huge names that have been integral in getting FIFA esports off the scene, but I think I'd be on there.
I think you'd be in the conversation, mate.
I think you'd be in the conversation. One of the first names.
Snood or no snood, you'd be in the conversation.
Yeah. Maybe I could have two. Allegedly. No, but we're not going to walk away. So look, we can't justify financially paying a player this year for the reasons we've stated. There's just so little guaranteed we can do anything with that player. However,
when one door closes,
a window opens. We're sneaking in the window and we're getting involved, okay? We've got something very cool. Before we tell you all about it, I'm going to let the announcement itself play its part. So watch this video and you might have an idea what's coming up from the esports section of hashtag.
Spoke to Roy Hodgson after the win last night.
Yes, very. I thought he played very well.
Oh, shut up, Shorey.
So there you go. They're back, baby. The trifecta are back in hashtag colours. We're talking Harry, we're talking Tom, we're talking Shorey. The hashtag house is there. If you build it, they will come. Well, you guys have got to watch the new channel. Hashtag house, links in the description. These boys are back involved in hashtag. How good is that to see?
Once a tag, you're always a tag.
Exactly.
They're like boomerangs.
Just when they
just
thought
come
they were
back.
out, we pulled them back.
They ain't leaving. No, it's very, very exciting, Spen. There's some big stuff coming. Those boys are not only obviously brilliant in the field, they're good at playing FIFA or EAFC, whatever you want to call it, right? But there's so much more than that, which is what we've always been about. It's been about being there in the big events, competing, but being entertaining, being part of the family. And that's exactly what we've got now in this house, is they're going to be doing so much stuff. You're not going to want to miss it. Get down there, get subscribed. Subscribe to their individual channels as well.
Yeah.
There is literally a tsunami of content coming.
I think it says a lot about where those boys are in their careers. And they've all had great careers. And we talked about some of the stuff we'd won. What we didn't talk about is actually, particularly Harry and Tom were really shafted when they played for hashtag during the COVID years.
Yeah.
Tom
Brutal.
was really arguably the best player in the world at that point.
He was smashing.
They would have both been in the World Cup and they never got to play in that World Cup because it never happened. So who knows? We might have actually won a World Cup if it wasn't for COVID. But we loved having each of those boys at the team so much. We saw the opportunity, we got talking, and we loved the idea of bringing them back into the fold. And these boys are kind of stepping up a little bit in their involvement as well. They're taking on some responsibility. They're really running things over there in the hashtag house, which could be a disaster. I mean, I'm going to pay a visit to that house.
It's going to be fun to watch where it happens. Yeah,
where Harry's room will be, and it's going to be just non-stop ridiculousness.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
But I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be getting down there as well. And I mean, it's just so happy that we've been able to not just stay involved in the scene, but actually have those boys
do
as
something
well.
exciting as well.
You know what I mean? Like,
it feels good, doesn't it?
Just so much fun that we've had. I mean, they've all actually lived with me. I've actually lived with them for a period of my life as well. I know exactly what that house has got in store. But the fact is, we're going to be in content now.
Is there going to be a hashtag housekeeper? Might need one.
It's going to be like the old days, though,
Apply
isn't it?
below.
Like,
it is going to be the old days.
We made the content we talked about when we had 3-4 players on the team. We made the videos. That's what that house, that channel is going to be like. So you've got to subscribe, support it. It helps the club. It helps the boys. It helps hashtag involvement in esports continue. Because who knows what the future holds? We might get back in. We might get a pro player again. These boys, technically, are pro players.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just a different kind of deal. It's very much a content play what we're doing in the hashtag house. And their content might be about competitive stuff. It might be about more fun stuff. Like, I think probably more true to what your experience as someone that plays EAFC might be like as well. So that's where we're putting our time and energy in the EAFC. It's going to take a long time to get used to saying that, I know, right? FIFA. EAFC space is going to be more about content and entertainment, which is ultimately how we got in this space. Like Wheel of Fortune, all the stuff that made my name was me playing FIFA for fun and finding fun ways to make the game even better. And that's what those boys are going to be doing. But I want to say one thing is, this sort of step away, if you like, from the competitive side, it reminds me a lot, maybe on a smaller scale, of what happened with Nadeshot and 100 Thieves. Nadeshot made his name playing Call of Duty and all that great stuff they did over there. And he made 100 Thieves, massive organisation. But there came a time with the franchising of Call of Duty where he actually had to pull away. And it was a huge video when he made it. I remember watching it. Yeah. Him sort of saying, like, we're not going to be in Call of Duty anymore. And it was like, what? 100 Thieves, Nadeshot, not in COD. That's unimaginable. But he had to make a business decision for his business that he'd created and he put so much love and energy into for the best of that business. And, it wasn't a long exit. I believe they got back involved again in the end. The point is, that's where we are right now.
Yeah, I mean, gaming has been a part of everything from the very beginning, right? And it's not going anywhere. Like, it's a part of your life, it's part of our lives, part of the content's life. It's a part of the football life these days, right? And it's not going anywhere. We've got loads of gaming content going, not just from the house, but on our own channels, stuff with EAFCs, but stuff with UFL, mate. We're getting closer and closer to the big launch of that. There's going to be loads and loads coming. It's always going to be a part of everything we do, everything we've ever done, part of your lives, part of our lives. So, it's the future is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, and it's also worth saying as well, this is a new channel, hashtag house. We've still got our, obviously, main channel where you're watching this video on now. We've also got our esports channel. That's still there. We're still going to make content on there. But hashtag house is very much like a separately run entity from those boys. Those boys are really taking charge of it, which could be disastrous. But I'll be talking to them. Don't worry. We'll give them a little bit of a helping hand. But it's going to be a lot of fun seeing what they get up to over there. And I think that's kind of it, really, isn't it? I mean, let us know in the comments below what you think. Honestly, it's fine if you're upset about this. That's fine. We're a bit upset about the fact that we're not having a pro player this year in the same traditional sense, someone who's being paid specifically to be a competitive player. But I'm also really happy that we're not having to leave the scene. I'm really happy that we're able to pivot, like we say, and get those boys involved and keep offering entertaining content. That's take the trophies away and all the things we've won, all that stuff. What we're probably best known for in the esports scene is making great content, and that's going to continue. And then finally, from my own personal involvement, we don't really know what the future holds with regards to the FIFA events. We just did the 3 events a few months ago in Saudi Arabia, and my understanding is there's still going to be some sort of presence there. If there is, I'd love to stay involved in it. I've just spent so much of my life doing it, like 8 years. I hope that continues. But equally, if it doesn't, and certain things mean that I can't be involved in those things, because often that is the problem with my diary and all the other stuff we do at the club, it doesn't mean that we're not watching. It doesn't mean that we're not part of the scene and really invested in it. And I have great relationships with all the other players as well, people that never played for hashtag. So I want to still be invested in. I'm really curious to see how all the EAFC stuff and the FC Pro stuff goes, and wish everyone the best. Any Premier League teams watching out there that want to get in touch with us, please do. Or if you just want to get in touch with us, not to work with hashtag, but just to talk about all the things we've learned over the last few years, we still want to be part of the scene for everyone. So we're here, and hashtag house is the best place to find anything hashtag esports related moving forward. Links in the description. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Do let us know in the comments if you'd like to see more of this sort of transparent chat with me and Sebi, podcast style. And we'll see you on the next one. Until next time, up the tags and don't go changing.